Welcome, geeks, to another exciting episode of Rockin The Code World with dotNetDave. I'm David McCarter. I'm glad you're all here. We've been off a couple weeks because Simon's been busy with other conferences and stuff like that, and so he's back home, and we're ready to rock your code or rock the world or whatever we're doing this week. And how was your the last couple of weeks for you guys? I've had a certainly very challenging couple last weeks, including trying to get over the flu, which I still got a little bit of, and a couple other things. And but one cool thing that happened was I saw for the first time since I was about 19 or 20, my best friend in high school. Yeah, he was out here with his wife and taking a week and vacationing here in San Diego, and I went and hung out with him a couple times and saw a few things. And as you can see from my nose here, I hung out in the beach too long because I sunburned my nose. So a word to the wise, if you haven't been out in the sun for a while, you geeks, because we all live inside, make sure you put on a lot of sunscreen. I did put on sunscreen. I still got burned, so I must be really white. Okay. Hey, one thing I was thinking today is I need more hats to wear. So if you have any hats you want to send me, and I'll wear them on the show. So I'll make a comment or email me, and I'll give you my address. Also, I owe a bunch of you some shipments of books and swag, and I actually did send them out in my defense, but the stupid U.S. Post Office, because I put a sticker in there for you, decided that's not media mail and sent it all back to me. So I need to repackage them and get them to the post office. So I hope I get that this coming week. I think I owe John some stuff. So I'm sorry it's taken a long time. It's between the flu and everything else. It's kind of been on my back burner, but I'm going to send it to you. Don't worry. So we have a great show today. Jirí, all the way from the Czech Republic, is going to be with us. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name because I'm really bad at that stuff. It's Simon. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry. That's what happens when you haven't been doing a show for a couple of weeks, right? You start forgetting stuff. There we go. Sorry about that, Simon. Anyway, Jirí's coming up in a couple of minutes, and we're going to be talking about all kinds of cool things like the evolution of C#, databases, .NET performance, Entity Framework, open source. So make your comments now what you want us to talk about, and we'll talk about them. Otherwise, we'll talk about whatever we want. This is your show, so let me know what topics you want us to tackle today. So anyway, I'm glad you're all here. There we go. Unfortunately, today's the 100th day of the Ukraine war, or yesterday was, and they're still fighting and trying to get rid of the invading Putin, Russia, whatever. But anyway, please, put your thoughts out. I know there's a lot of going on in the world. I know there's a lot going on in America right now too. But please, make sure you think about the Ukraine and everything they're going through right now, and just, not sure the right way to say this, but it makes you appreciate what you do have and stop complaining about it so much when you see, the total devastation that's going on in the Ukraine. It will take them decades and decades to recover from this, unfortunately. And so anyway, send your thoughts and prayers. And if you can support the Ukraine in any way, I hope you do that, because I want to go back and speak there because I love the Ukraine. So I have a brand new article out from CSharp Corner. You probably all know that I do a lot of benchmarking, not only for my open source projects, other things, but for my code performance book. And so I decided to, for moving my Spargin to .NET 6, I revamped my benchmark DLL that I use along with benchmark.net. And so if you want to see how I tackle benchmarking code, I hope you check out this article and also check out Spargin, the Nougat package for this to make your benchmarking easy. And if you have any comments or anything you want me to add to the library, please let me know, because I made it for me, but anyway, I want to welcome Jirí. Jirí's a C-sharp. Sorry, he's a .NET, C-sharp, and Firebird expert. He's focused on data, business layers, language constructs, parallelism, databases, and performance. Yay, performance. He's a Microsoft MVP and frequent speaker. You can read his articles at tabsoverspaces.com. And welcome, Jirí.
Hey, hello, everybody.
Hey, so can you pronounce your full name? Because I can't do it.
Okay, well, the full name is Jirí Cincura.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So I apologize. I butcher your name, but
that's fine. Maybe you can have a competition, like whoever pronounces my name correctly gets something.
That's a good thing. Maybe I should just call you JC. That's easier.
That's fine.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I said, before the meeting, I have trouble saying my last name sometimes. I say it too fast. I don't know why, but sometimes when I go pick up prescriptions, I go, who? I go, oh yeah, I got to slow down when I say that. Anyway, welcome. I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm doing today. I'm glad you're, spending part of your evening at 7 p.m. there. And so I'm glad. And where do you live exactly?
Well, it's the city that's closest to me. It's called Brno. It's like between Prague and Vienna, let's say. I think the viewers might be able to check the Google Maps or something. And Prague and Vienna is pretty well known.
Cool. I've been to Vienna, but only the airport. So
yeah,
that doesn't count.
That doesn't count, no.
No. But that's actually where I went. I had a layover in Vienna when I actually went to the Ukraine for the first time. That was my layover. So I got to spend a night at a hotel there, because they put you up in a hotel if you have a long layover or something like that. Anyway, how you doing? You said you said there's a storm coming, so you might cut out or something, right?
It's fine. As I mentioned before the show, it looked looking on the map and on the radar that it should be like 3-4 minutes before the show, and it seems it was fine. And now when I'm looking out the window, it's absolutely fine. So fingers crossed, nothing's going to happen. Yeah, we can still lose electricity or something like that. Somebody's going to cut a cable or something.
Well, hopefully that'll happen after 8 p.m. and then
hopefully,
okay, right?
Yeah.
So far, we've never had any major glitches on the show. So this is the 57th show, and we've never had a major glitch or anything that I can remember.
Normally, I would say I would be happy to be the first one, but in this case,
no,
probably not.
It's okay. Well, actually, it's not okay, because if you go away, then they're going to have to listen to me for the rest of the hour, and so, John said, I think you need some Greek coffee. Yes, I love the coffee from that area. I love Ukrainian coffee. It's so freaking strong. Yes, I love Ukrainian coffee, or Turkish coffee. I like coffee from Turkey too.
Yeah, I think we can start with a simple topic. I am a developer, I'm a programmer, but I don't drink coffee.
What?
Yes.
I saw a tweet today.
Please discuss.
I saw a tweet this I think this week that said that if you're a developer and don't drink coffee, you're like, there's something wrong with you.
Thank you. Yeah. I don't know. I never liked it, so that's fine. Probably.
It's nasty. And I drink it black, so it's even worse, But John, Oh, go ahead.
At least I enjoy pizza, so that counts,
that's
right?
That's my favorite food. If I could only eat one thing, it would be pizza for sure. Because it's got everything in there you need, right? Grain, protein, dairy, everything's there you need in one package, right?
Well, then the next question is pineapple on pizza. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
I like pineapple on pizza. Pineapple and Canadian bacon. Yes.
Of course, pineapple. Yeah, good. So I'm in a good company.
Yeah. The only thing I haven't really liked on pizza, I think I was in Vegas speaking at a conference, and they put like some greeny leafy things on top of the pizza, and I'm going, no, that doesn't go with pizza. I'm sorry, it's not a salad. Pizza's not a salad, so keep that off. And I don't like sardines. I don't. They're nasty little things. And,
and I agree.
Stinky. Pizza's good. John likes pizza. That's good. You guys don't know this, but I actually used to be a manager of a pizza restaurant when I was 18, almost 19 years old. So, so I eat pizza every day.
Because it was free, right?
It was free. It was the only way I could eat, by eating food at the restaurant, right? So anyway, like Simon said, I'm going to go off topic today, and I'm already feeling that. So what do you want to talk about? What all the topics you gave me, what do you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about the evolution of C#.
Okay. What do you want to talk about that?
Well, do you like the new features in the C#?
Like which features are you talking about?
I don't know. All these new like syntax sugar-like features?
Well, there's some of them I think are okay. There's others I don't really like bang bang.
Well, the bang bang is gone.
I know, and why? Because a bunch of us complained and whined about it, and they took it out, thank goodness. And that the bang was just getting overused, and and what was bang 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 going to mean in the future, right? I can't keep up with it. And I was even on a call with Microsoft, and because you get to go on these calls too, because you're an MVP. And I was saying, can we just use some kind of keyword or something? Why do we have to keep reusing, the operators like that or something, right? What's wrong with a keyword, Yeah,
I agree. That was my major complaint, that it was just like a symbol, not a keyword or something. And I think for people coming to C# or basically people not doing stuff in C# for the last 20 years, like you and me, it's confusing.
Yes.
If it's a keyword, you can say, okay, well, it's static, it's private, it's whatever, it's required or whatever. So I have one story because usually when I for the first time see the new features, I'm usually like, I don't like it. Like, I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't like it. Like, who moved my cheese? But recently, I was checking the namespace, the file scope namespaces. Basically, you have a namespace name and the semicolon, and you don't have to have the braces. Right. And I was like, well, I understand the reasoning behind it, but we've been fine for 20 years with this one. So why change it?
Why do we need to move it? Right. Yeah.
And exactly. And because I'm also in the open source and other stuff, we can talk about it later. Sometimes you look into the history of the open source, you are looking for something. And I don't know, like 2 weeks ago, I was looking into the history of probably the biggest open source project. I was looking like 15 years back. And if you have these like huge changes that change nothing, just like syntax stuff, you have a lot of like commits that are doing nothing, and you still have it in the history and you need to go through it. And especially with the namespaces, it removes a bunch of white spaces. So there is changes basically on every line. And I immediately was like, yeah, this is going to be the same story. Like everybody will be switching to file scope namespaces. You have a lot of changes and you cannot really easily go through the history, like who changed this line, because at some point you will reach this commit and somebody changed this line, but it was just this one. But then I was, I think it was like a couple of weeks, maybe months back, and I was checking some pull request on the .NET runtime, I believe, and I was interested into like what's happening inside, how they did it, and because I was checking on my phone during the evening, lying in my bed, I appreciated the file scope namespaces, because on the phone you have a limited screen space,
right?
And when it was in a file scope namespace, you can immediately see a little bit more on the phone. So whenever I'm speaking about a C# and everybody asks me about something, I say, you know what? I have a great story, because usually we are looking at the features through the lenses of like Visual Studio, big screen, keyboard, and other stuff.
Right.
But maybe half of the time we are also consuming the code by reading or exploring and other stuff.
Yes.
And then, for example, I'm doing that when I'm traveling to a conference. I might be checking just my phone because it's most convenient place, and I might be scrolling through Twitter and somebody says, hey, this is a great pull request in .NET Runtime or something like that. And I open it, and if there is a little bit more to see, obviously it's easier than constantly scrolling left and right and up and down. So I said, this is actually a great feature because it opens a little bit more possibilities when you are on a phone or tablet or something like that. From the other point, I would still say, well, it's completely useless.
Yeah.
Because when I'm on Visual Studio and other stuff, it's just fine. And it was funny when I started using it. Well, at least maybe everybody, you didn't realize how your eyes are so used to a specific place on your screen where the class or the method starts.
Right.
So the first day I completely changed my code to file scope namespaces. I remember like, okay, I need to fix this method. I need to implement this interface or something like that. And my eyes immediately jump into specific place on the screen. Right. And it was not there. It was a little bit more to the left. And it took me like a day or two to adjust into this one. And then I was like thinking, oh, this is so amazing how the brain and everything works, that it's so used to, it's on my screen. It might be, I don't know, for you, like half an inch or something like that, or 1 centimeter or a little bit over the distance, because I prefer tabs, my tabs over spaces. So I'm using tabs. And it still was like, first couple of hours, like, oh, no, it's there. No, still a little bit on the left.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah, some of the stuff it is hard to get used to. And, and while you were talking about that, I was thinking about some of the newer things that C# has introduced in the last few versions. And some of that is like, making it easy, doing using statements, on one line. And I did that for a while and I go, no, I don't like this, because I can't visually see how they kind of all interact together. Right.
Yeah.
I like the using statements with curly braces, because then I can see how they nest together. But when they're just one line, I can't really see that. And it's harder for me to understand how everything works together. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then there was that, and then like you can do like single line calls to methods and stuff, and I stopped doing that, and I just use curly brackets now, because it's just, to me, it's more readable. Yeah, some of this stuff is cool because you can do it in one line, but it doesn't make it more readable, right? And to me, if doing it in one line maybe is performant, then I can say maybe that's a justification. But if you're just doing it to do it, to make it one line instead of 3 lines, I'm not on board with that.
Well, I'm kind of in between, in my head, in between two different worlds, because I like when the code is like succinct. I prefer like succinct code more than anything. But on the other hand, I'm always looking at the code through, at least I'm trying to look at the code through the lens of people not familiar with the C# and each and every evolution. You know, me and you as the MVPs, we are looking in each and every change. But I definitely, on my courses and other places, people are coming and they are not following the C# perfectly. So they always like skip a couple of versions and they kind of explore what's new and other stuff. And the problem with like the single line using and other stuff that basically makes the code a little bit shorter, but it's two ways of writing the same stuff.
Right.
And for me, that's the problem, because first of all, if you have a team, even like 3 people, you need to make a decision, like, are we going to use the old one or the new one? And if you are going to use the new one, are we going to change the old code? If we are going to use both, then I think, I don't have any like scientific research behind it, but I think it adds a little bit of like your cognitive load. Because, for example, you might be preferring the using with the curly braces, but you can still read the single line. But if you are reading code of your coworker, you need to think a little bit about like what it means, which is weird. Why should we do that? It should be simpler, not more difficult or something like that.
Yeah, and that's true. And I've been speaking for decades, pretty much, as especially, well, I've been speaking especially since I put out my coding standards book, is that there's some things we do that might be cool on one line, but it's not as readable, so I don't do it, right? And we need to make a standard like that, right? Because like you're saying, the more you deviate from a standard, the harder it is for people to remember or get into what the code actually says, right? And you're saying and I know .NET's been around for 20 years now, and so things kind of get in there that then get replaced but then stay there. And now you're right, there's so many different things, and if you tell a student, well, you can do it this way or that way or that way, and they all do it exactly the same way, they're going, well, which one do I choose then? Which one are we going to standardize on, right?
Yeah, and I think the problem, or it's not a problem, but it's a difficult, different world, is that 15 years ago, the new version of C# came every couple of years.
Right.
So, for example, when we had the short syntax for getters and the setters,
right,
then it was like after 3 years from previous version of C# or something like that. Now we are getting new features every year. So it's a little bit difficult to keep up, and these features are kind of piling up one after each other. And again, if you are not keeping up with like what's changing, after 3 years, there were 3 major versions of C#. Obviously, there will be bigger features, but also these smaller like syntax sugar-like features. And it might be difficult, at least in my opinion, for people to keep up with these changes if they are not doing C# every day and every night.
Yes.
Because I have a bunch of colleagues and people saying, yeah, we do like C# and then we do Python and we are mixing it in our team or something. So we are not exclusively doing C# 100% of the time.
Right.
So then I think it might be a little bit difficult to keep up. On the other hand, if you are a newcomer, you might start probably with the short syntax with everything, more or less, and you don't have to think about the old stuff. I don't know. For me, it's difficult to imagine somebody coming into C# like right now, because I have so many years of background in C#, so everything seems to be like okay. But maybe for the newcomers, it feels better than with all the curly braces and other stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. This year, because I've had quite a few, meetings with Microsoft, including just one-on-one meetings with some of the PMs there. And I've stated multiple times this year to people directly at Microsoft going, I don't like the yearly releases. And I know that's a really controversial thing to say, right? But I think you and I think very similar because, when I talk to them about stuff, I'm talking to them about, what I would like to see. But usually, because I'm a Microsoft MVP, I would say 3/4 of what I'm saying is for other people, right?
Yeah.
And I've told them exactly what you've kind of just said. I've told them directly on the phone this year that it's going to be harder for people to get into C#. It's going to be harder for the junior people when you keep doing this stuff. And then I told them, one of the issues that I've been seeing at Microsoft is that, so right now, it's the middle of the year, right? And all they're talking about is .NET 7, right?
Yes.
Which we can't use, right? And so when .NET 7 comes out, they're going to stop talking about .NET 7 and then start talking about .NET 8. And I'm going, well, now, you should be talking about .NET 7 when it comes out, right?
Yes, that's actually a great point, because yesterday I was looking at YouTube and a video of Matt Storgensen talking about C# 11 popped out. And it was named "What's New in C# 11?" And I absolutely understand what's the content and why it's there and so on, because it was the build probably and something like that. But can you imagine how confusing it must be for regular day-to-day developers when they are scrolling through YouTube and suddenly a video of "What's New in C# 11" pops out, and he or she is going to play and say, "Hey, this is great, let me try it," and it does not work.
Right.
So he or she is starting to do some investigation and realizes, okay, well, it's .NET 7, and .NET 7 is not going to be released for next 6 months or something.
Right.
Yeah, so it's always building the hype and then nothing.
Right. Yeah. So I understand why they want to talk about it, because they're trying to get people's input and things like that. But that's all they talk about, right? They don't talk about .NET 6 at all, right? Right now, nobody's talking, and Microsoft is talking about .NET 6, right? And this is their messaging problem to me, is that, sure, talk about the version coming out in a year, but realize that none of us can really use it. And beyond that, it's going to take years before other teams get to use it, right?
Exactly.
And so why not talk? And that's why, I focus all my writings, I focus all my conference speeches on what you can do now, right? Yeah. Because I want people to walk out of my conference session or read my article and go back to work Monday and do it, right? Yeah. And not say, well, you're going to have to wait 6 months for that, right? And so, because what you were saying remind me of I think it was a video I saw, some Microsoft produced, their weekly video toolbox. I think it was the toolbox thing that, weekly video they had, and they have, they had Stephen Toub on, who I really like. I think the guy is wickedly brilliant, and I've been trying to get him on the show, but I can't get him so far. But he was talking about this really cool stuff that's coming out in .NET 7 you can do with regex, right? Yes. And we all hate regex, right? I've never seen a tweet going, I like regex.
I like them, yeah.
Yeah. And you like regex?
Yes, I do.
But he was talking about this new really cool stuff they're going to be doing with source generators, right?
Yeah.
That will basically alleviate us from all this boilerplate crap for regex and make it easier for us to do regex. And then that was like February, and I go, well, by November I'm going to totally forget about that video, and not remember it's even there, right? And almost weekly now I'm finding things in .NET that I didn't know were there, right? Because they don't talk about them when they come out, right?
Yeah, actually, I was doing a conference talk a couple days ago about .NET 6 and stuff that might be lost in between the lines with the .NET 6. And really, I can talk for 75 minutes about new stuff in .NET 6, now half a year later, that people don't know about, because there is so much stuff. And obviously, when you are looking at recording from build or something, it will be the big stuff, minimal APIs and
Right.
this and that. And the smaller stuff, for example, just for the viewers, do you know that in .NET 6 there's a new collection called priority queue?
No.
Yeah, and it's there. And
I'm writing it down right now.
I needed it a couple of times in the last 20 years, and people even asked me, like, is there something in .NET that allows us to have like a priority? And I always said no. And in .NET 6, there is a priority queue. So you can have a queue with priority, and nobody is talking about it. On the other hand, I quite like stuff that they are doing with .NET Runtime. Like, release every year makes sense. Every other year with the long-term support, that makes sense because first, it's predictable. I remember in .NET 4.5, 4.6 era, it was like always out of nowhere a new release.
When's it coming out?
Exactly. And then the world is changing really quickly. So the new stuff, it doesn't make sense to me to have a new release of the runtime every 3 years, for example. Every year makes sense because you will get the new stuff a little bit faster. You can still stay on the LTS version if you want like stable platform.
Right.
It makes sense. For the language, I agree with you. I would be fine if the language would have a new version every 2-3 years. It would be fine.
Yeah. And, circling back to, we're the beginning of this, and we're talking about the bang, bang, right? And the bang, and, my work moving my Spargin open source project to .NET 6 last year and this year, which I just released at the beginning of last month. One thing I found, another use for bang, and that is, when you're using nullable types or nullable parameters, right? If you want to send a parameter back, then you have to put a bang at the end of it before you send it back, in the return. And I'm going, so you put the bang at the end of the variable. I'm going, okay, well, there's another use for bang, right? So there's a bang there. There's a bang for, logical operations. And now they wanted to do a bang bang for null checks. And I'm going, okay, stop with the bang. Ban the bang. I never liked the bang anyway. It's hard to see.
I'm checking the comments, and somebody's asking priority queue. Yes, that's what I was
that's
talking
what he's
about.
saying, Tom. Yeah. And I think I did see a tweet about that this week, and probably yours, if you tweeted something about it recently. But I think I did see a tweet about it. But I didn't know.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that if I'm having a hard time, I've been using .NET for 21 years, right? And if I'm having a hard time keeping up, just imagine the newer people and people or people who just don't, pay attention to this as much as like you and I do, right?
Yeah. Which probably brings me to another topic, the open source and the cadence of the releases, because that's another story we can explore.
Sure.
I'm writing a ADO.NET provider for the Firebird database. So regular database, Postgres, Microsoft SQL Server, similar stuff. And for the next, 15 years or something like that, I've been maintaining a provider for this database. So you can talk to the database from the .NET. And obviously, I'm also maintaining a provider for the Entity Framework 6 and Entity Framework Core. And because the .NET releases every year, I need to support the new version of Entity Framework every year.
Right.
And then obviously you have the question like, am I going to go only LTS releases? Am I going to support multiple versions?
Right.
Because people might not be able to upgrade immediately. And what about the bug fixes and other stuff? And for me, as basically a single person, because I get a contribution here and there, but we are not a huge team. I'm basically the single one doing it in my free time.
Right.
It's always a little bit weird because right before or right after the new version of .NET and Entity Framework Core comes out, I'm getting a couple of questions a month, let's say, not a day, but a month, like, hey, can I use let's say Entity Framework 7, and I say, no, it's not supported, you need a different, and I need to implement it, yada, yada, yada. And then obviously I'm always like torn between implementing it before with these preview versions and redoing my work multiple times, because obviously there are some breaking changes, or just waiting for the final release and then doing it on the final release. And more often than not, basically like 100%, with every version of Entity Framework, I uncover something that's not working quite right, or maybe some issue with the testing suite that we can use as the provider writers. And obviously now it's too late, like it's the version 7 is released. At least they are doing the monthly servicing releases. But still, I need to probably find a workaround for now to continue doing that stuff. So I'm always saying, well, it would be so easy if they would do it like once every 3 years, because I would have, because for example, the EF6, the Entity Framework Core 6, I implemented somewhere in January, February. I was hoping to do it during December, before December, like a couple of weeks after the release. But, stuff happens. So it was January, February. But then it was waiting for one feature in the underlying provider. And because I did a huge change there, it was into a new major version. So it took me another couple of months to get the major version of the underlying provider. So it was officially released, I think, last month or 2 months ago. It's June already, so 2 months ago. So it took a long time. And it's always like Microsoft is doing its thing, and if you are not aligned with the release cycle, you are on your own basically, which is fine. It's the open source, but you are on your own. And then you have people saying like, hey, I want to use the new .NET. I'm saying, yeah, well, it's not my daily job. I'm doing my best doing this stuff. And then you release it, and I'm like, yeah, finally these people will be so happy. And you get an email like, hey, I upgraded to new version because why not? And it needs Entity Framework 6, and I'm not ready. I'm still on 5. And I'm like, okay, well, I have one person yelling at me that it's not supported, and other person like, it's too fast. And it's always like, I'm doing my best. Just let me alone.
You should tell them it's open source and it's free and shut up. No. They can't get mad at you. It's open source, right?
Yeah, the problem with this library is it's kind of a niche market. I think it's a little bit different if you are an open source library with hundreds of contributors per year, where you can basically say, hey, it's open source, just implement it.
Right.
Because I get a bunch of pull requests during the year, but it's difficult to take the feature and put it in, which is maybe another topic we can talk about, because I want to talk about it.
That's you did bring up something that I haven't really thought about too much. I mean, I know it affects me, but I haven't really thought about to talk about it. But the other thing that I've run into, especially when .NET is changing versions, is Nougat Hell. Right. So we don't have DLL Hell very much anymore. Right. But we have Nougat Hell. And so if you're using an updated version of a Nougat package, but there's another package you're relying on that uses an outdated version of a Nougat package, you're screwed pretty much, or you have to do a lot of work to get around it. Right. And I'm not sure if that happened when 6 came out. Maybe it was 5, but I had all kinds of issues with those kind of things. Right. I think it was right before 6 came out. I was having all kinds of Nougat, violations because they were all on different versions of something. Right. And it just doesn't work very well in the same project. Yeah,
definitely. Another thing for the open source is sometimes people want to implement a feature, which makes absolute sense, but I have to say no for one of two reasons. The first is that it's not good fit for the library itself. Like with the ADO.NET provider, I need to be a little bit aligned with other providers, like the SQL client and Postgres client and others. So we need to behave more or less the same way. And the other is like, is this going to benefit you or a small group or everybody? And then finally, and it always breaks my heart, some people send a pull request. It's really good. It's maybe a niche feature implemented, and I just have to say no. Because you are bringing hundreds and hundreds lines of code, and I'm pretty sure that you will be gone in half a year, and then I am the one who needs to maintain
it. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a nice feature. I understand the code, but I'm not going to merge it, because then I need to maintain it, and I'm left alone doing that. So unless it's really something good or fixes something in the ADO.NET world, then it will be no.
Yeah. Well, the Nougat Hell problem, recently actually, because at some work I was doing, I ran into this issue with the Nougat packages not aligning and having issues with them and everything. And I think I did tweet this because, and I know it's never going to happen probably, but it kind of just, to me, shows that we really need something like it. And that is, with dotNet 6, you can make single file executables now, right? That operate by themselves, right? And brings in all the code from the other libraries into your exe, and then executes that. You don't need the other libraries and all that stuff, right? And so I was thinking, why can't we do that for DLLs, right? Because that way we could have easily have different versions of Nougat code from Nougat packages that would work, because it's in that DLL and it's not going to affect the other ones, right?
Yeah.
And I know that's not going to happen, but I wish you could do that, right?
That's actually a great idea.
Yeah.
Because for me, as I'm writing the ADO.NET provider, it's kind of a low-level library in your project. I don't want to take dependency on other libraries, because you might introduce the version help in the NuGet,
Right.
but obviously people don't want this like a base library to rely on something else. It's the same with the Newtons of JSON, for example, right? You don't want to bring a Newtons of JSON and have a bunch of other dependencies left and right. So I'm always, for now, I don't have any other extra dependencies, but I had to bring code from other open source projects and check the license and other stuff for like compression and encryption for the communication, if you select to have a compression and encryption. And that would actually be pretty nice, that I would be able to have a reference from a NuGet and then just build one huge DLL. And if you take this library from the NuGet, there will be no extra third-party dependencies. That would be actually awesome.
But
maybe
bringing code from other libraries can be challenging too, because it's written in a completely different way that you wrote your library. And like it reminds me once that there was a type in Visual Basic.NET I really liked, and what was it? It was I forget, but there was a type in Visual Basic.NET that only existed in Visual Basic.NET, and then I wanted to. And since nobody really uses that anymore, or will put it into their library, I wanted to bring that type, into my open source library and just make that available, right? So I brought the code over, but that code then talked to all kinds of different other places in the library that I couldn't really do it, right? Or I didn't want to spend the time bringing all that other stuff over too, right? Because it wasn't just one class; it was all this other stuff, you'd have to change the way they do exception handling and all kinds of things, and I just didn't think it was worth it, right? And so that could be challenging too. So it's doing open source can be challenging, that's for sure, and
but at least we have the NuGet now. I remember
the
days before, when you were just dropping DLL files into program files, and you just had an installer to install it, and then you have to build it and ship it, and it was crazy. Then we started having it in Subversion or whatever version control was cool at that point, and it was just like a bin folder or something with all the DLLs, and then just manually replacing them. That was crazy, because then you replaced one and everything break because of some dependencies. Now at least we have the Nougat that checks it for you. You still end up in the same problem. You have some version conflicts and other stuff. But at least you know before you start your application that, there is some conflict, and I need to figure out way around this one.
Programming is fun, but sometimes it can be really challenging, right? It's kind of a two-edged sword, I guess, and especially since a lot of us do so much on our own time, and not on work time. It's at least for me, I spend most of my own time doing the funner stuff and not the stuff that's a pain in the butt all the time, because especially when you're at working on a large project, at a company, and it's really hard to keep stuff updated, right? I worked at one company recently that their main solution had 82 Nougat packages out of date. 82 out of date, right? And some of the code has not been changed in 10 plus years, and it's so I guess I'm trying to get back to the cadence, the .NET releases cadence. It's too fast, right? And teams can't keep up. Every team I go to is far from the latest version, right? I don't remember going to any team recently that was on the latest version of .NET.
True. I have a course for upgrading your application from .NET Framework to .NET 6. And at the beginning, I'm talking a little bit about the .NET runtime release cadence and how the current and the LTS and the .NET standard and other stuff aligns, and whether they want to use .NET standard and no or not. And it's always a huge discussion right at the beginning of the course, because the people are so confused. They are not following it like perfectly of what's happening in this world. I definitely agree that it's difficult for people that are doing normal development,
right,
to keep up with these changes, especially if you have also other things to do, right? It might be November and your company is planning a big release. So it's not until February that you can actually check what's new and play with it, right? And then you are in February, you are already like 3 months in. So it can be difficult.
So John, your team is on Core. Do you mean .NET Core or .NET 5 or .NET 6 for the new Blazor project? Because I think now that term is getting confused, right? We had the framework, then we had Core, and now we have .NET, right? And so what do we call it now? It's that the name keeps changing.
It makes sense. I absolutely agree
with
the naming. I understand like how that happened, but it's confusing for the end users, developers, and we still have ASP.NET Core, Entity Framework Core, and especially right now, because I've been in Entity Framework world since 2007. And maybe you remember the famous Julia Lerman book, the first one, the like 600 or 700 pages. I was actually doing the technical review for this one, even before it came out. And now we have Entity Framework Core 6, but we still have the normal Entity Framework 6 that's still supported and it's running. And every time somebody is talking to me and asking for help or consultancy or something like that, nobody is saying Entity Framework Core because it's too long. So usually they say like EF or Entity Framework. And I always have to say, you mean Entity Framework, like the real one, or the Core? Because it's completely different stuff. I'm always like, this is not good. Really not good. Luckily, in half a year, we will have Entity Framework Core 7. So whenever somebody says EF7, it will be fine because we know what version it is. But it will be just really few people will say, hey, EF7, I remember that was the version that was eventually Entity Framework Core, like the first version.
Right.
But that will be probably you, me, and Julia Lerman and other few selected people that do remember all these little historical pieces from the evolution of this stuff.
Yeah. I agree. I also told Microsoft this year that I wish they would run things past MVPs first before they start announcing stuff. Like the bang bang. They should have had a meeting about that first. Because we all would have told them no, and it would never have come out, right? And because that's happened before. I've been at Microsoft MVP summits where they showed us something. I don't have time to talk about it, and we all collectively said no, and it was almost immediately gone, right? Including the first version of the way they were going to do data storage in Azure. We all said, nope, that's stupid. Don't do that. And a week later, it was gone, right? So I think I know Microsoft loves the open source world and everything, and I know they love the input for that, but some of the things I think they should run by us first before they start announcing it to the world and causing all this drama and fighting and stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
tabs versus spaces, right? It's that kind of thing, right?
Well, that's easy, right?
Well, you and me know that, right? But
one thing that I'm always doing in last, I don't know, like 3 years or something, when I don't agree with something that Microsoft is doing, I always ask myself, like, okay, what would be the way to do it correctly?
Right.
And sometimes, because it's two different things, like saying, okay, I don't like this, but then I have a better solution. And sometimes when I'm thinking about the solution, I'm always like, well, this is really difficult problem. Because, for example, the yearly cadence, like, okay, well, we can switch to 2 years or 3 years. But then obviously we have a huge set of changes that will affect a lot of people. So that's not good as well.
Right.
So on one hand, it's easy to say whatever, we don't like it or something like that. Sure. But then when you think about it, or when somebody from the Microsoft, for example, on these PGI calls, right, asks like, okay, well, what's the solution? And it's like, oh, it's actually more difficult than I thought it is. And at least from my experience, whenever I'm talking with these like smart guys from the Microsoft, whenever I say, okay, well, you can do it this way, they always say, well, no, because this. And I must, never thought about this one.
Yeah, we don't think about that, right?
Yeah. But usually they really gave it an honest effort to explore different options. And it does not happen that much to me when I propose a solution, when they say, oh, that's actually interesting. Usually it's like, been there, done that, doesn't work. And I'm like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah. It's well, we gotta go in a minute. The one thing I want to kind of finish off this discussion with is, I know we've spent a lot of time, kind of complaining about, the release and open source and things like that. But one thing that I keep getting on Microsoft about, and I hope they're listening, but I doubt it, but is some of this stuff would be a lot better if the documentation that came out with it, if documentation even came out, was any good, right? I mean, to me, the quality or the detail in the Microsoft documentation in the last 10 years have just gone downhill, right? And they don't spend enough time doing the documentation before it comes out, right? And I know developers don't like writing documentation. I'm on board with that, but we can't expect people to understand how to use it or not be upset about something if you don't document it well, right? Like even this week, I was trying to look up something about the an article I'm writing that's coming. I just finished for CSharp Corner, come out next week, and I didn't know what this property did. And I went to the Microsoft documentation. It was like 5 words that didn't say anything really. And I'm going, okay, well, what does this property do? And it didn't say it. And I'm going, what does it do? I tweeted it. No one knew. I did. Whenever I see that on the documentation side, I always submit feedback going, what does this do?
Yeah.
put more detail in this thing, right?
I don't have opinion on that. Mostly because me 10 years ago and me now, different like level of experience. And I know that in general, the documentation 10 years ago was way more detailed.
Right.
But also nowadays, I have more experience, so I can figure stuff out. And in fact, if I would have to say on an interview or something like that, what's your like secret weapon? Mine, I'm not the smartest one or something like that. But I can figure stuff out.
Yeah. So can I, but
in really short amount of time, I can just figure stuff out. I don't know like how I'm doing it or whether you can like learn it or something. So usually when something is lacking in the documentation, I just figure it out.
Yeah. But that also depends how much time you have to figure it out.
Yeah,
right?
obviously. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And what else was I going to say about it? It depends how much time you have to do it. And I was going to say, remember that and email me what you think about that in 10 years when you're older. Yeah. Let me know.
Yeah.
Because I'm older than you are. So let me know. Because believe me, that changes.
Yeah, might be.
Our brains just don't work as well as they do when we're younger. That's for sure.
Yeah. On the other hand, to maybe say something positive, I'm really happy that Microsoft did the gamble with the .NET Core and all these changes like 5, 6, 7 years ago when they said, okay, the .NET framework is no more and we will start basically from the scratch.
Right.
It was a huge gamble, but it paid off. Yes. And it's really good. And I think it immediately skyrocketed the .NET and the C# and the whole ecosystem into like top 3 most cool environments to program in.
Yes.
At least in my opinion.
Yeah. I saw a survey this week of the popularity of C# is rising. So that's a good thing. Actual VB.NET is rising too, but mostly C#. But I totally agree with that. That was a great decision. Even though it had kind of a rocky start, what we're left with now and all the capabilities you could do with it, not only in Azure, but also Blazor and all that other cool things that we could do now. Yes, that was a great decision by Microsoft for sure. Yeah. Well, I've got to go because Simon's going to get upset at me. So I was going to ask you tabs over spaces, but you already said a couple times what yours is, and I'm the same way. Tabs for sure, not spaces. So all of you are doing spaces, cut it out. So what do you do for fun besides coding and looking at code at night on your phone?
I like running and a little bit of yoga, but lately with a kid and like work, it's getting a little bit more difficult. But running is something I really, really enjoy. I'm not running with headphones or anything like that. So I'm weirdo. I don't drink coffee and I'm not using headphones when I'm running. But that's something that I kind of, when I'm running, because I like to run the long distances, like ultra distances, like 50 miles, 100 miles and other stuff. It's a place where you can face your demons, but you can also talk to yourself.
Yes.
So when I'm training, even if it's like 1-2 hour training run, and I will correct myself. When I was training, it was like 1 to 3 hour training run. There is so much stuff to think about, because there's nothing else to do. You just run. It's fairly simple movement. You don't have your phone, you don't have your tablet, you don't have your laptop, but you still have your brain. And you can think about problems and you can think a long, long time about them.
Yeah.
And that's the same with the yoga. I really like Ashtanga yoga because it's strictly given what you are doing. You don't have to think about it, but you still need to be present.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different stuff for example, with the running.
Yeah.
It's not like you are like switching off and doing something else. With the yoga, you need to be present and you don't have time to do other shit, like thinking about groceries or just what I'm going to watch tonight or something. No, you just need to be present because suddenly you are slacking and it does not work.
Yeah, that's kind of why I like meditation. Same
exactly.
thing. You kind of get out of your brain and you just, give your brain a rest for a little bit. And, so it's a great thing. And besides tabsoverspaces.com, do you have anything else you want to plug before I let you go?
No, just the Tabs Over Spaces. And when people need to find me or something, everything is there. Links, Twitter, GitHub, other stuff.
I checked it out this morning. You put your what you teach up there and your sessions you do, and you even put the link to this today. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. Well, if you want to hang out and talk after the show, please do. Otherwise, if you don't, have a great evening. And I had a great time chatting with you, and you're always welcome back. Come back on the show anytime you want. Just let me know if I don't hit you up sooner.
Okay, thanks for having me.
All right, thank you so much. That was a great session with Jirí. I don't know if you noticed, but my head was bopping up a lot during that interview because everything, he was right on with everything the way I think, except for a couple things, and so that's great. It's always great to talk to people who are similar minded, I think. All right, so. As with every week, everybody wins a copy of Code Rush from DevExpress. If you go to devexpress.com/dotNetDave, Code Rush is the refactoring tool, the only one I've used for Visual Studio since it's been out. Every day I code, I use it, and it not only makes the code better, but it makes me a better programmer. So please go check it out. It's free. It's a real copy. It's not, it's not a trial copy or anything. Go get it now. Because you need a refactoring tool. Right now, I'm doing a Twitter poll. And I'm asking people how you validate data coming into your applications. Because I'm going to take the results of this poll and turn it into an article, because I definitely have an opinion about this, but I want to see what you guys think. So please go to that URL right there, or go to real.netDave, and it's pinned right to the top. And please vote in that. There's only 3 days left. But basically, I'm asking, do you put all your validation in the application code, the database, or the data model, or the user interface? And so please answer that because it will influence what I say about in the article. And yes, it's missing an option E, all of the above. I agree. But dang, Twitter only allows you 4 options. So I'm sorry. If you agree to all, just retweet it and put your answer so I can see it. Okay. Also, we briefly talked about mentioned coding standards. I hope you'll check out my coding standards book. It's the only pure .NET coding standards book out there. I'm constantly working on a new version of it. I'm not sure it'll be released, but it's still a great book. It's my biggest book I've self-published. So I hope you go pick it up today, especially if you don't have coding standards at work. And most companies I go to either have 0 coding standards or very, very poor coding standards. So check out my book to get your jump started. I found this pretty funny today. Recently, Geek Humor products. All product features, all these features, but what the user really needs is just a box and a cat in it. This is so true. It kind of reminds me of when my kids were, little toddlers. We spent all this money, on toys for them, cool toys. And what does my son do? He spends most of the time getting into the kitchen cupboards and taking out the pans and banging and doing stuff with them. So why'd I spend all that money on all those toys? But anyway, listen to your users. That's all I got to say. Also, I'm still raising money for the kids in India. As you all know, I am constantly raising money for the Voice of Slum NGO in India that I visited 2019. I hope to go back there later this year in October to see how they're doing. But because of the funding you've helped me do, we've been able to restart the vocational training for women at that orphanage. And so, but that won't happen if you don't help out the NGO. So you can go to this GoFundMe page that I started, or you can just go to voiceofslum.org directly and donate there. They have a list of like school supplies they need, including clothes and shoes for the kids. And so think about our friends in India and the orphans in India and or the kids in India and help them out, because they really need our help. We can do it. We're software engineers. We can help. All right. Thanks for watching. Next week, I'm so excited to have back on the show Jeremy Likeness, I think I said it wrong. Likeness, Senior Product Manager at Microsoft next week. I'm so excited. He's not only is he wicked smart, but he's a great guy. And so I'm really looking forward to next week's show. So therefore, I hope you are too. Also, please be safe. Listen to your medical professionals about COVID. I forgot to ask Simon how COVID's doing in India right now, but we're definitely having our numbers rise here in America. So please listen. Even some of my friends who have not gotten COVID recently got it. Luckily, I'm still okay, but please be safe out there. Also, to help your other humans, please go donate blood. I haven't been able to the last couple of weeks because I've been dealing with the flu, but I will be next Sunday. So please go donate blood to your local blood bank. They're always in a shortage, and it helps out. One blood donation can help out 3 people. So it just takes a little bit of time, and you get out of doing physical activity for 24 hours. Well, wait, I don't do it anyway. Okay. Thanks for watching. Email any suggestions, requests you have to the show at rockandcodeworld@CSharpCorner.com. And with that, I'll see you next week.